So I was swimming, was super mediocre, wasn't really doing anything, but my mom was an avid runner. And she was like, you should get out and run. And I refused to run. I thought it was stupid and it hurt and I didn't want to do it. And eventually one day she got me out. I ran a mile around our neighborhood, but I couldn't even make it the whole mile. And I stopped and I was saying some choice words to her. And then she signed me up for a 5K. And so that was kind of like the beginning of my running career.
What it do, all-terrain fitness fam? How the heck are you? We are here with another edition of Fueling Fire with All-Terrain Fitness. We have our lovely friend Whitney on today. We're going to talk about some awesome things. What are we going to talk about today?
Oh, well, we're going to talk about all the pitfalls that us ladies have fallen into, all the misconceptions that we've believed, and how Whitney has really tried to solve that for herself and has now looked outward and is spreading that impact to all of the women athletes that she trains with her amazing company, Strength and Light.
Boom. Yep. So you're here with Coach Garry and Coach Hailey. And Whitney, what it do? Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and just what you're up to right now.
What up, everyone? My name is Whitney Taylor. I own a company called Strength and Light. It is strength, endurance, nutrition for women. And we do all things hybrid training when it comes to combining your strength and your endurance. So you get out there and you PR everything in your life. So that's a little bit about what we do.
Heck yeah. She is a fellow all-terrain human. She walks the walk. She talks the talk. So we figured she'd be great to have on.
Oh, absolutely. And the best part is that the way Whitney and I crossed paths were actually on social media. The devil itself is what brought us together. And it was truly, I saw everything she was doing and was like, holy shit, this girl looks like such badass. I want to be her friend.
It's definitely funnier than that. So,
well, yeah, then it went one level deeper. And it was a little creepy.
So, little story of how we met. I have a mutual friend with her husband. I'm hanging out with him and my buddy. And so she had also sent me this account. She's like, man, I feel like this couple we would just be best friends with. And so she showed me this couple.
With them.
And then I hang out with this guy, with my mutual friend. And then like a couple weeks later, she says something with this account. I'm like, oh, wait, like that's the dude I hung out with. And so lo and behold,
I know him.
Then we met Whitney. I was like, hey, Whitney, we had already said that we felt like we'd be good friends. And, good hunch, Hailey. Good hunch.
Yeah,
the stars aligned.
And we showed up and had a sleepover without even meeting Hailey.
That's right.
Yeah, we did. It was the best.
It was a good time. Now we are good friends. So, we think Whitney is a great person to have on about this because she has been through the ringer herself with how she used to train and then how she pivoted and why we think this is a great story, a great hero's journey, if you will. To how to get to this position of training better, smarter, being all-terrain. So, Whitney, tell us, just kind of backtrack, the beginning of your fitness journey, what that looked like, and then the story.
Yeah, so my fitness journey probably started it started back in high school. So I swam when I was in high school, but I was never good at anything. Like my parents really wanted me to play sports that had balls. They would go out and throw me the softball. They put me in soccer, and I literally in soccer, I sat in the middle of the field and cried. I'm just like, this is just balls and sports with me just don't work out. And so I was mediocre.
Another commonality between you two.
I mean, if you have to try to catch something, it's just too much hand-eye coordination doesn't work out for me. So I was swimming, was super mediocre, wasn't really doing anything, but my mom was an avid runner. And she was like, you should get out and run. And I refused to run. I thought it was stupid and it hurt and I didn't want to do it. And eventually one day she got me out. I ran a mile around our neighborhood, but I couldn't even make it the whole mile. And I stopped and I was saying some choice words to her. And then she signed me up for a 5K. And so that was kind of like the beginning of my running career of just, I didn't run in school. I just ran because it was a way to escape reality. And I felt good after doing it. So I started there.
Was there a breaking point when, I mean, because that first mile you were stopping, you were basically like, fuck this, I hate everything this is about. When did you go out next? Like, when did you catch the bug?
I want to say it probably took me at least a month to get into really like understanding that I kind of liked it. It honestly wasn't until I did that race, which was like 2 months later, that was like, I crossed that finish line. And I vividly remember this, and this was years ago, but I just looked at my mother and I was like, I'm doing this. Like, this is what I want to do, because it felt so good to accomplish something like that. And that really was where I started, where I was just running was for me, and I would show up to these races, but in reality I was just me against me. I just wanted to continue to get better. And I think I liked it because I was wearing, like, you see these runners at these races, they have their entire gear, they have the best shoes, they're matching everywhere. I literally wore like those super cheap white t-shirts that you can get from Walmart, and like, I don't know, shorts.
For the loom, baby.
Yeah, and the Sophie like shorts that you rolled up.
Oh my God, Sophie like shorts.
3 rolls. And I would run, and people would look at me, and I would pass them, and they're like, "Who the hell are you?" And that just lit a fire under me. I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what I can do with this. And so that kind of drove me. I mean, when you get into fitness like that, you want to see how you're eating. You want to like focus on eating better. You want to focus on following a routine in your life so that you can actually continue to work out the way you want to work out. And so that's how I got into the nutrition component of it.
That's something I think all three of us as coaches love seeing, when that break point, mental shift happens, when somebody falls in love with what their body can do, right? Because then it becomes that lifestyle, it becomes the thing where you want to and you get to work on the nutrition and the other things to fuel the things that are making you feel alive, right? Things that are making you have that escape. So you got into the nutrition. I think you got pretty good at this stuff at one point.
I did. So it was kind of a journey. The running thing was great, and I loved it.
Not that she's not good at it anymore.
I loved so. The running itself, I loved. Again, I was really into the nutrition component, and I actually ended up fracturing my pelvis training for a marathon. And that was like a big defining moment in my life of like, okay, I wanted to go down this road of being healthy, and I tried to figure it out on my own. Clearly something's not right, because you shouldn't be fracturing your pelvis training for a marathon.
How old were you?
I was 23 at the time.
And why do you feel like that happened?
Because my regimen with training was wake up early in the morning, or I had running was just my thing. And so I wanted to run all the miles all the time. So I was running 6 to 7 days a week. My long runs were way longer than they needed to be. And my nutrition advice was coming, and I'm not knocking blogs, but my nutrition advice, and this was back in 2010, 2011, blogs were the rage. And so I would wake up and have my coffee and read blogs about how to eat my oatmeal in jars and eat all your fruits and veggies. There was really no plan of you need to be eating protein, you need to be eating fat. And so I was eating a lot of fruits and veggies, and I thought that was healthy. And I was really tiny, very tiny.
Yeah. How much were you weighing?
I weighed in at 93 pounds. And I want to say I am a tiny human to begin with. I'm 5'3", and my mom is very petite. I am petite. I currently sit around 115, 118. And so, yes, 93 is very tiny. And I went through a long period of time of putting on a lot of weight and a lot of muscle.
Well, I think you women can definitely speak to this much more powerfully than I can, in the sense of that's a trap that we see a lot of women fall into, right? Where they also want to stay very tiny, right? And how they think they have to do that tends to be this overtraining, this insane amount of calorie burn, do more, and then you get very trapped into this, like, the way I view it from a man's perspective is this kind of artsy-fartsy view of crunchy granola of food approach, right? Like the cutest foods win in your world.
That, like what he was just saying, she's like, learned how to make oatmeal in jars. I'm like,
Yeah.
I fucking love putting things in jars. Are you kidding me? It's like, okay, how much oatmeal are you eating? It's like, well, does it fit in a jar? No. Like, we need to actually understand what the hell we're doing and not focus on like, well, this is how it was, like, what is the word I'm looking for? How it was presented. When that's not, the presentation is what we're focused on. We're focused on.
Unless you make it mini size.
Yes.
Then you gravitate towards it like a moth on a light.
I definitely do. I have a mini waffle maker, and that shit is awesome.
Oh my gosh,
you know,
look at this thing. I'm like, you love it because it's mini.
I love mini.
But I think one of the things that happened to you, and I think it's happened to almost everyone that has caught that bug or has kind of decided that fitness is a part of their life. Nutrition is, you know, usually the next part, but it's kind of down the line that you start to perfect that. And I think also you weren't good at things growing up, and that's a really, really big part of your story. And I think owning the fact that running, you didn't like it at first, but like you just gave the explanation that during that first race, you passed people. There was that competitive edge in you that you'd never really seen come out before, but for some reason in running, it was like, holy shit, like, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I'm better than someone else. And then you go down that path, you're making progress, you're getting better. So doing what you're doing is obviously working. So the next step that all of us kind of gravitate towards is, well, let me do more of it. Let me just do it more often. Let me add it in more. And I think that's the trap that we fall into, is like, we found progress, so let's take it to the next level and elevate it. And we don't necessarily know how to do that appropriately. And I think that's where you get into that trap of, I wanted to be smaller, but also be faster, but also do this and also look like that.
And also just eat everything mini size.
And it's just a never ending cycle.
Yep. It's that do more, be more mentality. And it burned me so bad. And I've seen it burn so many clients. And I mean, that's why I do what I do today. And I feel like all of the hard life lessons that I've learned from the fractured pelvis and then going on and learning how to do it a different way. And over a 2-year period of time, I put on 20 pounds. And this was 20 pounds from eating, but also from being heavily into weightlifting. I cut back. I switched my mentality, which was very hard. I will not say that this process was an easy road. There were days when I would sit and like be holding a cookie in front of me, just bawling my eyes out. Like, I cannot eat another effing piece of food right now, but I have to. Like, I need to because I know what my goal is. And that process of also growing where you're not fitting into your clothes and being so involved in that number on the scale, and when you see it start to rise, you're like, what the hell am I doing right now? Like, why am I doing this to myself? Because this is not what we were taught. And so I think owning those struggles, but then like actually seeing what happens to your body during that process is really, really special. And that's what kept me going, was like, I was getting stronger. I was moving weight I had never imagined touching before. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I used to crumble under this weight, and I was running 20 miles a day.
Yeah. So there's a few things that I'd like to pick apart, if that's okay, ladies.
Yeah, go for it.
The first thing, so back to that fractured hip. And I think this is something that I really want to kind of segment into the pelvis. Segment into kind of that whole training mistake. So, would you say the big driver of that was the overtraining, lack of protein, lack of fats, and lack of resistance training? Do you think that was some of the big causalities of that?
All of them, yes. That's exactly what it was. It was, and I want to point out, you said lack of fat, and I feel like that's very important because at 23, I went to an infertility specialist because my hormones were so messed up and they didn't know why. And again, this was back in 2010 when this whole like hormone phase that we're going through right now, when this buzzword is hormones and hormone dysfunction and hormone therapy. But back in 2010-ish, I was visiting the infertility specialist like every couple of weeks, and people were like, oh, like they felt bad for me. But I was like, dude, I'm not even trying to have a baby right now. I just like, I don't even know why I'm here. They sent me to Duke in North Carolina because I was a case where they were confused about what was going on with my hormones. So
you mean doctors
even
confused
though,
about
even
what
though
food
they
can
didn't
do for your
say,
body?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying, you mean doctors confused about what food can do for your body?
Exactly. How weird is that, right?
Right.
And that's what they were like, you need to be on this medication, you need to be on this medication. And my mom and I were just like, what is happening right now? And in hindsight, like it was 100% nutrition. I was not eating near enough fat. I wasn't eating I was eating protein, but like substantial protein to actually support what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then the overtraining was just ridiculous. And that's where it's like we get into this mindset, especially if you're an endurance athlete or you're trying to train for something with endurance. Majority of the programs out there will say it's like they're all based off of mileage. It's you want to hit 30 miles this week, 50 miles next week, and that's okay. But it gets to a point where you're just running way too much for your body.
Yeah, and that's, to that, even if you're not the endurance, right? We have an athlete, Jen. Shout out, Jen, if you're listening. She came into our atmosphere chronically restricting macros, always eating low calories, thinking she had to stay at that low number, doing 2-a-day workouts, not sure why she was tired all the time, why she wasn't making progress, right? Thinking I had to keep this low number, but also increase that volume, right? That perception hits a lot of people. That misconception hits a lot of people, regardless of what you're training for, right? It's this I want to be lean, but I also want to make progress in my training. And the way you eat and fuel are counterintuitive. And I'm looking at Coach Hailey here too.
Did I do 2-a-days and only eat Skittles for lunch? Maybe. That might have happened.
And so I think that's one thing I really wanted to dissect out of that was this shift of like why we think that happened. The lack of fats. Fats are your building blocks for hormones. Proteins are in every cell of our body, right? It's what writes our DNA, our hairs, our skin, all the above. So you fractured the pelvis, and then you were also with infertility doctors. But I'm curious, like, what was the aha moment you had to change it, or who told you, or what was this catalyst that got you into and getting a clear understanding of how to eat for your metabolic needs and what's the appropriate amounts?
I was told that they diagnosed me with osteopenia, and they wanted to put me on medication, and they were like, you're going to be on this medication probably for the rest of your life. Your
what
bones,
age again?
And 23.
Okay.
And my
people
osteopenia is the beginning stages of osteoporosis of your thinning bones. And so that was one thing, like when I heard that, I was devastated. And then the following statement was that I was just not built to run longer distances, and that 5Ks and 10Ks were pretty much the only thing that I could really dabble in for the rest of my life. And this was at 23, and I was at like I was literally a couple weeks out from running a marathon that I was trying to qualify for Boston in. So it was a pivotal moment for me where I was like, you're going to tell me that I'm never going to run again? That's funny.
Well, they also
Right.
just fucked with your identity. You're like, yo,
Yes.
I'm sorry, what? I am an endurance athlete. I am a marathon runner. Like, it was almost like that pushback was what you needed to be like, hell fucking
You're like,
no.
F no.
Yep. And so that's when I was like, I looked at my mom. We left the meeting. We left the office, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going on that medication. And so that's when I started actually researching, like, how do I fix this? And so I got on the Google machine, and of course, I found so many different things, and I was like, what the heck? I don't know what I'm looking at, but I just started testing stuff. I was like, all right, let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. And it was a blessing. I also found triathlons during that time, which was also a blessing. So
Yeah, well, and I had a very similar experience. It's funny, our catalyst to go further into fitness, like, you know, we each had our outlet. I was an angry teenager, angry dude. Was a guy listening to freaking thrash metal while I'm lifting.
You still do that sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you got to let the beast out. But for me, I was back, early on, 18, whatever, just starting to, 2-3 years into my lifting career, and I'm doing like all the curls and stuff and all the variations of curls, and I'm getting this terrible wrist pain. Long story short, I go to an orthopedic surgeon and he's like, oh, you have ulnar abutment. And he's like, I'm going to have to break your ulna in half and then shave it down. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm all right. Like, I definitely don't think I want my bone broken. And so for me, I went down into this more functional approach, right? More functional approach to creating more structural balance, making sure I'm not just doing the same movement over and over, right? And then lo and behold, creating more balance and structure in my shoulder. I didn't load up my ulnas as much. And the pain went away, and I didn't have to break my ulnas. But same thing, right? Like that's that catalyst of, and I think it's you can either hit that point on your own and have to keep self-learning. And I think the beauty of now of having so much more coaching available is like, or you can just cut to the chase right the F away and bypass I don't know, for me, it's been 15 years of self-education to get to the point where really in the past 4 years that I feel to a level where it's just totally at ease and simplistic and automated, right? So
I think we've all three of us have now gotten to the point where we've tried to do so much of that self-learning, and it has gotten us to where we are. It's great, but I think we have also come to value and understand that coaching and knowing our strengths and knowing where we need to look outside and gain further advice that way, whether it's a business coach, whether it's an endurance coach, whether it's a nuanced approach in nutrition, whatever it is. Like, I mean, Whitney right now, she's the endurance guru in my little sphere. She is who I go to coach me through endurance-based things. I am a coach myself. That doesn't make me better than coaching in general. And I think it's a kind of a hard spot to bounce out of like people that do get success and motivation when they can find something upon themselves, but then really understanding everyone has their own expertise, and kind of taking that time, understanding our time is so valuable, finding someone who has that knowledge and really trusting them and understanding that, coaching is available in any aspect that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, like you said, Gary, like it's been 15 years now and you're finally at ease. And for Hailey having like specialties, like I agree 1000%. I've been doing this now for 11 years and I feel like I'm just now hitting my stride with like being comfortable in my training and like knowing what I'm doing and not really looking elsewhere for it. And now one of the reasons why that has happened is because I know how much work goes into building a specialty like that. And so I will 100% outsource to get that education from somebody else that's been there and been through that experience, because it's far more valuable than what I can Google online. So that's
for sure.
Like it has definitely exposed me to like knowing the value and having a coach. And I have a coach. And so it's like every coach needs a coach because they're not, if they're not specializing in something and they don't have a specific focus somewhere, then they're just generalizing everything. And so are you really finding the best of the best?
Yeah, I mean, we say this all the time, right? If you want to get down that road of success that you find value in, the quickest way to get there is surround yourself with people that are already down that road of success, right? Like if you have that niche in endurance, well, you know, I know a lot of things in fitness, but you know what? This person's just a little bit more out on the fray on endurance, so let's go ask them. For us, in our business, we've hired 2 business coaches. I now have I just started a little, I guess you would call it kind of mentality group community coaching thing, which is now kind of like in person post-pandemic. It's kind of nice. It's different, right? It's different than the business coaches I've had before. And it's kind of just having somebody to check and balance off of myself instead of always trying to bootstrap it, right? And sometimes you need that. If you want to just keep things in balance, we will always have some type of coach present. We might have gaps, but we're always going to be willing to invest in that. But before we get too far down that road,
I'm like, sorry, I know you had another thing you wanted to
no.
latch on
So
to.
it's perfect. It's all encompassing. It's all encompassing to talk about how, you know, it's important if you want to get down that road faster. You could go down the route like Whitney and myself and you, and be 15 years of coaching people on this, learning about it, making your life profession. But you probably, if you're a listener, you probably don't have that much time because you have other careers and things to do.
Kids, families.
So you shattered the pelvic bone. You started self-learning. You started changing things up. You said you weren't going on the hormone medication. So you got into triathlon. So what was that? I'm sure this cataclysmic outlook on things at that moment, and feeling probably like doom and gloom was the only thing about to happen. What were some of the building blocks that got you through? What were some of the mental shifts, and how did you kind of get back to a place of loving it probably even more than you did before?
The first one was the finding triathlons. So my recovery involved a lot of swimming, and I swam in high school. And so I got to get back in the pool. And then when I was able to get on my bike, and then I started running again, I was like, oh, I can do this. It's not as much impact on my body. And again, crossing that finish line of like, wow, this is fun. But doing different modalities proved that I was gaining strength in other areas. And so I liked that. Like I was able to push more power running, and I was able to push more power on the bike. And I learned that all through just literally getting on my bike. I was like a very busted bicycle. I started all of this by bootstrapping
kind of like
together.
My
running
outfit. Clothes.
Like, yes, everything I did was just like, okay, let me figure this out. And so that was kind of how I started, but I loved it and I wanted to be better. And so when I was training, I would do these races and I would get like 5th or 4th in my age group, and it was pissing me off. It was like, what the hell? Like, I clearly have some type of potential.
You're in first, you're last.
And so that's when I was like, I need to do something because clearly what I'm doing isn't working. And I started researching, and I was like, I'll try this CrossFit thing. We'll see what happens. And
yeah, you got into weightlifting.
Yeah, I started moving some weight. And guys, when I started CrossFit, never done a pull-up in my life, had never touched a barbell. I was that chick in those cycling classes with my 3-pound dumbbells. Like, yeah, get it. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And so I need
to do more reps, tone and burn.
I was so scared of CrossFit, and like we had to learn how to do a snatch, and it was terrible. But I started seeing improvement within like 3 weeks of adding this strength to my training, and my mind was blown.
So yeah, you got back to a point where you were learning new things, right? Kind of like when you got into the running, you were expanding your knowledge, you were getting into something new, a new opportunity, a new place to grow. You're seeing it perform and amplify other things. And it gets back to that thing of, again, re-falling in love with what your body's capable of, seeing progress, putting in effort and then getting a positive feedback loop, right? And I think a lot of people miss that in their life, right? A lot of people put in a lot of effort to things, or they put in a lot of effort to run away from their fears. And one thing that's always provided all of us in fitness is being able to put in this effort and see a positive feedback loop, right? And I think that's a vital part to psyche, right? When we talk about the all-terrain mindset is, we also want to be in a position where we can feel like we're growing and we're making progress, and we're going towards our position of aim, right? When we are making the progress, we make growth. Growth is happiness.
Well, I think one of the things I noticed every time when you talked about when you got into running, when you got into biking, when you got into CrossFit, all of these moments kind of come with, and I can like visualize you exactly in your outfits each time. And it's one of those things that I think is really beautiful is like you didn't need to perfect and feel comfortable in that. Part of that journey was that each jumping off point was very much outside of your comfort zone. So not only were you building those skills and, growing into something new physically, but the mental strength that it takes to, feel like almost you don't fit into that identity of where you're going, but not allowing that to stop you, and knowing like you can still progress, you can still get better. You don't need to get all of these things to have that identity. It's really truly who you are from within. And I think that's one of the things we get so stuck on now when we can like order everything too, that it's like, okay, before I run, I'm going to make sure I have the perfect shorts and the perfect shoes, and I'm going to order this watch, and I'm going to have my running belt, and then I'm going to do this, and then fuck it. By the time that happens, you don't even want to go out the door because you lost your motivation. Same with biking. I'm going to research the best bike. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go get lifting shoes. And it's all focused on kind of those materialistic things. It wasn't focused on, let me just go try something new and see if I like it. Like you boiled it down to the basics again, and I don't think that happens often.
And I just want to say with that, for all of you out there that feel like you don't fit in, I've been in this running community, and I also work on the software side. Like I work with race directors in this running community, so I'm at races all of the time. I still show up to these events, and I don't feel like I fit in. So there's no amount of fancy equipment or awesome like matching outfit, matching sneakers with the whole ordeal. None of that is actually going to make you feel like you fit in more. You have to just kind of own who you are and just approach it with how you want to approach it. I still am intimidated at times, but I remember that like I chose to not wear that. I chose to not do this because I know like I don't need all of that to accomplish my goals, because these people have nothing to do with my goals.
When you had the clear vision of why you're doing these things, your why was so strong. And this is, when we have people come into our all-terrain atmosphere, the very first thing we have them do is create a vision map, create the goals, create the mindset. And I think you had, not only was it so strong because it had your health on the line, like it was either this or nothing, and it was this or medication. And so it was like, well, I might as well try and give it my full effort. I honestly don't have time to worry about all of those other things and that excess stuff. Like I'm doing this for a bigger reason than just to look cool, just to have the way people perceive me matter to me most. And I think it's really hard for people to focus on, or it is really easy for people to focus on just kind of going through those steps and looking at the surface level day-to-day tasks that we're kind of checking off, and really not looking at that overall big picture and not having that vision map in mind. So I would just be curious for just like interest levels. How do you kind of keep yourself grounded in your why, keep yourself grounded in that mindset, that big picture, when shit does hit the fan or get hard or you change kind of courses?
That's a really good question. And this is something that's very valuable to me as well. And I do with my clients is that why can literally disappear in a second. I could literally have that why and be so strong and feel so good about it today. And then tomorrow I could be like, why am I even doing this? Like, it can change in an instant. And so I have it on my desk. I have something written on my mirror in my bathroom. I write it in my planner every single week. I go through my like goals in my week. I am very routine with making sure that I remind myself often my why, because I don't want to get lost in all of the noise that is out there, because it is so easy. You can literally get on social media right now, scroll for 10 seconds and you're lost. You're like, oh, I like what they're wearing. I like what they're doing. And you're off this way. So
for sure.
just
I did that this morning.
Reminding yourself daily.
I read something important. I was like, I'm going to go write it down. And then I had a notification on social media, and then down the rabbit hole.
Okay, that reminds me, though, because with social media right now especially, and I was just talking to Whit about TikTok, because I feel old and like don't know how to use some social media things. But I was talking about, on TikTok and on social media and all these things, you see all these workout videos and all, like, I get sent them sometimes too of like, hey, is this a good workout? And I think this is one of those training pitfalls, bringing it back to those common misconceptions. Right now, we have all of that at our fingertips, and it's like, oh, well, I want to do what they're doing. It looks really cool. I want to, like, I think one it was, I don't know, they were like jumping over this box and doing a squat. I don't know. All these things that seemed very excess. And I was like, holy shit, why don't you just like jump on the box and get off the box?
The flashy moves.
Yeah, the super flashy moves. And like the fact there's like the trampoline classes and stuff. And I think,
one core exercise is exactly what I need to get a flat tummy.
Yeah, or like this is the specific thing of how you're going to build the booty. This is what you have to do that. And I think it's so hard when you're not confident in knowing what you should do training-wise to just kind of follow those blindly and not understand the why behind those.
It's hard to just get to a place of the basics, right, and the principles. Yeah. It's hard to be bombarded by all these things and decipher what is correct, right, what is going to work. So, I feel like we've identified a few things in your story, right? You have this story of your journey. We're only at the point of you getting into CrossFit and triathlon, so I think we have a lot more to dissect. But we've identified a few things that we definitely always see, all of us, mistakes-wise, that tend to happen a little bit more to our female counterparts out there, in the sense that burn more, restrict more mindset, fats, low fat, whatever it may be, right? It could be that. So you started getting to a point where you started fueling for your actual needs, right? It broke away from this tiny restrict more mindset. You're sitting there crying about feeding more food, but you knew you needed to do that because you knew you needed more fuel. You got into trying new things, which again, I feel like a lot of people in the gym, not men and women included, like when I was a personal trainer, I can't tell you how many times I'd be training somebody and they'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that movement. Oh, I don't like that movement. Or I know what I need. I'm like, cool. That just tells me that you just don't want to do anything that makes you uncomfortable, right? You don't want to potentially try something that could potentially lead to a perceived feeling of failure. You've now boxed yourself in and you're in your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So you've continually gotten through your comfort zone, which is something I've always implored any athlete, any client, is to try something new, press your limits, because the other side of that anxiety and fear of doing that thing that you said you felt like you might not fit into, and you do start to succeed and find growth, you find happiness. Growth is happiness. So you try new things, you're eating more for your needs, you started getting into resistance training, which we say many women tend to, like you said, they want to do the lift, tone, burn,
weights,
3-pound weights, and you got into squatting and pull-ups and things that look intimidating but yet are so fundamental to how we move. And then you really started to see some progress. So what'd you say? You put on 20 pounds, you're eating more, you're lifting.
Yes.
And then where'd we go?
So I want to say with that 20 pounds, again, that was over a 2-year time frame. And that did not come just from like this progress of just skyrocketing. I had a lot of pitfalls because I was in the do more, be better mindset constantly. And so I was like, oh, well, if I just run 10 miles and then I can go do my 5x5 squats and then I can go do all this, and then I'll do the CrossFit workout. So I was like just stacking these things on top of each other, and I wasn't telling, like, the barbell class that I was in with the coach, I wasn't telling him that I was running, because he had told me, like, you should not be running and lifting at the same time. And I was like, that's funny. Okay. And I would just go do it anyways. And
More is better.
I think you had people tell you can't do this, and you showed them wrong. So
yes, but
when
I
someone
also
told you
failed.
can't do it.
I also failed, because that's when I was like, we would go through our 3-month cycles, and at the end of 3 months, I would try to max out, and I wouldn't be able to lift like 70% of my weight. And I would just sit there crying, and my coach was like,
why.
I don't know what's happening. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I do.
More is better.
Yes. So it's like, I learned the hard way over and over, but it wasn't until I finally committed to cutting back on the endurance until I can handle it. And just really focusing on what my coach was programming for me, and like doing exactly what he said. Because again, the shiny object syndrome of like, oh, well, that CrossFit workout looks fun, I'm going to do that too. Like, oh, I want to make sure that I keep my core while I'm not doing any endurance. So I'm going to do 5 hours of core, like just ridiculous things. And then when I finally streamlined it and did what I was supposed to do is when I saw the most gains. And I honestly did not even recognize my body. I was like, this is who I've always wanted to look like. What? I thought that I had to lose weight to do that.
Less is more. Smarter is better.
Yeah. And that's what it blew my mind, like comparing the, like, what I looked like at like 100 pounds to what I looked like at 115 pounds. I was like, I would take the 115 pounds any day, at any time. Yeah. And I think every single other human being would as well.
Well, Coach Eric and we worked at this gym called the MAC, Maryland Athletic Club, back in the day. And we would see this all the time, right? We would have a client that would train with us. Then they would run down to the boot camp class that was on the gym floor. And then after they were done the boot camp class, they would go and run a crap ton of laps around the gym. And then they would come to us and cry why they're not seeing progress. And we're like, and we would just be like, you're doing too much. And they would refuse to hear that answer, right? Like you said earlier, they were the people in between changing stations that they were doing the jog in place. It's like, holy shit. Like, where did this thought process even come from? Right? But like, where does that even come from? And so, it's just testament to you. You've lived at all these different obstacles that you've continually overcame, and you got to a point where now in training, less was more.
And still quality to this day, less, yes. That's what the book that I was telling you guys about, Essentialism, highly recommend if you struggle with like having boundaries or just focusing on what you want in your life.
Right on the bookshelf.
But that's what what is it? Do less but better. And so that's, I literally say that to myself every day, is do less but better. And that's your training mentality. That's what it should be, is do less but better, because your results and your body will transform because of it.
Well, and it's because you're giving your body space to recover.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think that's what we don't understand, is we understand almost the basics. Most people kind of get like, in order to build muscle, I'm going to break down muscle and then it will rebuild. And that's how I gain muscle. And it seems very simple and easy, but we don't necessarily look at recovery. And you mentioned before, like, shiny object syndrome. Recovery is not super sexy and super fun and motivating. And you don't get that like endorphin release and like, oh, I didn't feel like this runner's high after I did recovery. So it's usually the thing that we tend to skip, or we decide to replace it with something that feels like it's doing more. We have a lot of those athletes come in, they're like, but I just didn't feel like I worked out. And I'm like, we're not going for your feelings. Like, trust me, just listen. And I think prioritizing recovery and also kind of understanding what recovery looks like and what it can be, and that recovery doesn't mean sitting on the couch and just resting. It doesn't just mean taking a day off. There's so much more to it.
But it could mean that you actually do need to sit there with yourself and not run to
yes.
escape your problems.
No, I'm just saying it's not just that. Like so many people I feel like pigeonhole what recovery is. And I'm like, well, it can be a whole host of things. It also, Whitney and I talk about this on a personal level all the time. It can mean different things on different days. Like just yesterday, recovery to me was going for a run with absolutely no music because I just needed to like down regulate from all of the sounds and everything of the world. Like that was recovery to me. There's other days where it's literally like sit the fuck down and literally do nothing, like breathe. And I think it can just be a whole wide array of things, and not allowing yourself to pigeonhole and understanding that once you do take that time, whether it's like actual specific care for the body, or kind of more on the mental spec, not that, I mean, those two really go hand in hand, but you really do see the benefits, and you're really not going to be able to tell until you do it yourself.
And it's like when you start training and eating correctly, recovery is built into the system, right? When she started training less, when she stopped doing more is better, right? When she started implementing strength training, when she started eating real foods, right? All these things encompass recovery, right? Like you said, it's not one thing, it's a whole host of things. It's a symbiotic relationship between all those different patterns. And when you do get to a position where you're training correctly and you are doing things to prioritize lean body mass, you are doing things to prioritize eating more fuel and eating right, and you are doing the things to, you know, make your training more balanced, recovery is automatically built into that, because if you're not, you're going to end up like Whitney, where she's doing a whole strength cycle and doesn't gain any more weight on her squat.
What do you do for recovery? How would you define it? That would be interesting.
I've actually never really thought of it in that way. I guess the way that I would define it is you need to do whatever your body is feeling in that moment. So like if you do have a program recovery day and you have the option to choose what that recovery looks like for you, if you're feeling super worn down, or even, I mean, this goes into like mentally, you're just mentally fatigued. Maybe it's not a body fatigue, but you just feel broken, or you just feel like you've been hit by a train, then recovery needs to be listen to your body and take a break. Like you don't need that. And I think that the big problem that I experienced, and I'm sure others have experienced this as well, is that when you're in that cycle of like do more and just keep going and like stacking workouts and needing to move, you are fearful that if you don't do that, something terrible is going to happen to your body. And so it's like there's a definitely, like you said, Garry and Hailey, like there is a mental block to understanding like what recovery can do for you, and then actually allowing your body to experience that recovery. So it comes down to, if you are so anxious and so fearful about what was going to happen if you don't move that day, then maybe your recovery does look like you go out on a walk, or you just do something to move your body. Because that stress that you're going to experience from worrying so much about the fact that your body is going to gain 15 pounds in one day is way, way superior, and is going to affect you as well. If you could just calm down, take a nice walk, decompress, that would be much better for you as recovery.
And if you are a person, if you're a listener and you like to move, you are that person who already does work out 5, 6, 7 days a week. Like if you have a day or two where you don't feel like working out, you should probably listen to that, right? You don't have an issue of motivation to work out, right? Like when you are at that point where you are obsessive in a sense, like you listen, just listen to it for a hot second, chill the F out.
And I think understanding what listening to it means, and I think especially as females, there's a lot of basic things that we almost don't really understand why our body is behaving the way it is. And this can go deeply into like understanding our cycle. And I always say knowledge is power. If you know why your body is telling you something, signaling something, that is so much more powerful just to have that information, even if it doesn't change how you feel in that moment. But understanding why takes away so much of that panic, because there's so many times where you're stuck and you're just like, why am I like this? And that's where the guilt and the shame and all of that comes from. But when you understand the signals that your body is telling you, when you can start to, like in psychology, we would always talk about, and observations and stuff, ABC, antecedent, behavior, consequence. Look at the behavior that is problematic or making you feel super stressed or just shitty or whatever you want to change. We focus so highly on that specific behavior and the consequence afterwards, but we never or rarely look at the antecedent. What was happening before that? What was causing this behavior to happen? And let's try to notice a little earlier on. So instead of getting to the point where we're sitting there crying, as Whitney and I have said literally so many times today, like before we get to the point of fucking tears, oh my God, let's figure out those warning signs before. Like, listen to what your body is saying when it's like, hey, red flag lady, like chill out. Listen to that and be like, oh, okay, let's make some shifts, some changes before I get to that behavior, or before the behavior is so severe that the consequence is absolutely crazy.
Yes.
Boom.
And yeah.
Boom.
And that's, I feel like one of the problems with the understanding the body is that we don't trust our bodies. And that's for a whole nother topic. But that's like, we don't trust our bodies enough to tell us the truth. So we want to control it.
Ooh, deep. We'll have to save that one.
Would you say that we trust media, our cultural expectations, what is out there, that we kind of have that overarching quote unquote power over us more than the body? Do you think that's kind of like where the problem stems from?
That's a component. I think there's also, depending on where you are in your fitness or nutrition journey, of like, well, if somehow I got here and I was eating this way because my body told me I was hungry, and so I was eating, and now I'm 30 pounds overweight and I feel disgusting. So clearly that's not right. And so it's just that. And then you see, I mean, social media is such a curse and a blessing at the same time, but you see like people drinking their green smoothies and eating their salads and all of that. And you're like, well, then I guess that's what I should be eating. So like, you're telling me that I need to eat more, but do you see what these people are doing? And do you see what they look like? And so that just paints a picture. And it's like, I don't care what my body thinks. I'm just going to do what I'm told.
I like that.
Hey there, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode and took away some value that will amplify your life. But if you are ready to become an all-terrain human yourself, then click the link below to head over to our Facebook group to receive a copy of our all-terrain body blueprint, the 5 key pillars to a fast metabolism for life. These 5 pillars will show you how to speed up your metabolism at any age and eat for your specific metabolic needs so you can obtain your ideal composition without eliminating foods and spending all day in the gym. So if you're ready to reclaim your energy, vitality, and fire for life, then click the link below and head over to the All Terrain Fitness Mentality and Fat Loss Facebook group to pick up a copy of the All Terrain Body Blueprint, the 5 key pillars to a fast metabolism for life, and we will see you on the inside.
Yeah. All right. I have a few closing questions.
Ooh.
Rapid-ish fire. So to recap, I think what we've identified, and I think this all coincides with everything, the big thing, a lot of the problems that we notice, especially this happens for both sexes, but definitely our females, they get trapped. The social media, what they're getting this input tends to lead to the burn more, restrict more, the lack of protein and fats, lack of just calories in general, the lack of resistance training, doing too much, not allowing their time to recover. But what I would love
is if you could each, in a couple sentences, what would be one message you could send to our female listeners, viewers, as to what, one paragraph as to empower them into doing the right things, giving them a little sign-off, encouraging message as to implementing the correct things and why they should. Is that a good way to wrap it up? Is that a good way to answer that 10-sentence question?
Like a little love note? Is that what you're
Little
saying?
love, yeah, a little love note. Little sticky note.
Dear diary.
Yeah.
I will say, is this more, because I think I would say something different to someone who is further along in their fitness journey and has tried and is kind of in that rabbit hole almost. I think that would be a different message than someone who is getting started out altogether.
Just to women in general, about training and fitness and loving it and doing the right things.
General population. I like it.
Yeah, what would you say to them?
I
You
think
go
when
first.
it... What?
You go first.
Me go first. I think one of the biggest things I would say is to surround yourself with someone who's going to go through the journey with you. So trying to find someone who's kind of in a similar experience, and then find others similar to what we were talking to with coaching, find someone who is beyond to kind of be that point person to pull you out when you do feel like you're getting so far behind, or when that obstacle does arise, because it is going to arise at some point in time. And one of the biggest things I would say is to not suffer in silence. I think that's one of the biggest things that we do to ourselves.
Quiet desperation.
Yeah, and I am reading a book right now by Brene Brown, who I just love all of her things, but I always feel like I somehow find these moments at the right time, or the words. But it was really talking about shame and the difference between shame and guilt. And I know this is a really long love note that is going off topic, but I promise I will make my I'll make my point.
I love your rants.
Really the biggest thing, and I find myself doing this, is utilizing shame and guilt kind of in that same situation. But I feel like when we're trying something new or we're putting ourselves out there, the feelings of shame are actually a lot more prevalent than the feelings of guilt. The feeling of guilt is more so like something that you would apologize for, which is like, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, like I'm gonna fix it now. The feeling of shame goes to the deeper person of I am the mistake. It's
Or
all
I don't feel like enough.
Yeah, I'm not enough. It's internalized here. So I think really trying to make sure that we're not suffering in the silence of shame, and having the people, the tribe, someone to actually talk to and get them out loud, whether that is a nuanced thing with training, whether that is a question you have about trying something new, just telling someone that you're going to do something a little bit different. I think the biggest thing that gets in our way, and one of the things that gets in my way, is trying to be quiet about it, because I am embarrassed, or was embarrassed, that asking someone or saying it out loud made it real.
Pride?
Pride, yeah,
What?
I guess pride. And it would that admits, why are you giving me that smirk? That admits that I didn't know the answer. And I think Garry knows all too well I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and that is like the one thing that I just couldn't get over, is as the youngest, obviously you don't know shit because you're 5 and everyone else is 12 years older than you. But I think getting past that pride.
It's a deep ingrained thing to try to prove your competency.
Right. And so it's like, if I just don't say I don't know, then at least
Or if I
I'll
say
be
I don't
saved.
know, it proves that I might be not competent.
Right.
And my identity is wrapped up in trying to be competent because I'm fighting for that.
Right. And understanding that, especially now, and it's not going to be everyone, but people are out there rooting for you. And I think we get really stuck on the perception that everyone is against us, and especially female to female. And Whit and I bond on this all the time, of why she and I are so close. We both own fitness companies. It'd be really easy to be like, oh, well, let's be competitive. It's competition, when really there's other people and other women out there that are rooting for you, and you leaning into being vulnerable and sharing your weaknesses does not make you weaker than that other person. That doesn't make them more valuable. It's not like only one person can win the race. So that is my very large rant of a love note.
I'm going to be your bullet pointer for your rants. So, bottom line, let go of your pride so you can attack the deeper underlying things that are ingrained very deeply. And to do that, you need to surround yourself with an awesome support team. Is that?
Boom, nailed it.
Yes, love it.
All right.
And
Got it.
I will keep mine very, very short. I think the biggest point that I want to drive home is just find, it follows what Hailey said. Like, find one or two people that you trust, but have one of those people be way farther ahead of you. Preferably a coach of some sort that kind of helps guide you through this, but commit to them, trust them, confirm that that is your person, and ignore everything else, because all that other noise is just going to delay your progress. So find your person, find that one person that will also support you going through it, and just keep your focus on that. Forget the noise.
Boom. Love
Hashtag
it.
Forget the noise.
Forget the noise. All right. Whitney, we have one more question. So we totally, you walk the walk, you talk the talk, you are an all-terrain human. So what does being all-terrain mean to you?
It means that I can walk out my door right now or at any moment and get into any activity that I want, knowing that I can handle it. It might be hard as hell. I might cry, but I can at least do it. And that's what that means to me.
Fuck yeah. That was awesome.
Woman
was our
of
best-
few words, and I feel like
That was the best one punchy sentence anyone's given us on that.
It was. I'm taking a lesson from your book. Next step, Whitney, tell me how to say things in few words.
Sweet. Well, Whitney, tell people where they can find you, what you're doing. I know you have little programs, so tell us all about it.
Yeah, so you can find me anywhere on social media at Strength NIN Light. That's my handle on Instagram. That's also on Facebook. You can go to my website at strengthandlight.com. And I just launched an 8-week women's online group coaching course. And so this is specifically for women who are either just getting into nutrition or who aren't really sure. They've tried the macro thing, but it hasn't worked out for them in the past. This is to get you to a place where you can ditch the dieting and finally figure out what's working with your body and what's going on with your body, so you can, again, stay focused and just know the end of the game. And so with that, there will be an endurance component of it if you're interested when you join the course, where you can follow along an 8-week training program that combines strength and endurance to get you to run a 5K, an 8K, 10K. No such thing as an 8K. I mean, there is, but not in running. 5K, 10K,
You could
half
make
marathon.
one.
Yeah, you could just make one up. But yeah, so that's what's going on right now. Super stoked about it. This will be the first time that I'm doing it, and we already have a lot of great girls in there. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm excited to see the results. I know you're going to crush it.
Yes, it's going to be good.
Heck yeah, that's Strength in Light, and you get to train with a badass. All right, All Terrain fam, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, head over to YouTube or our All Terrain Fitness Mentality Fat Loss group. We're going to do post-show wrap-up, give you some actionable things for you ladies out there, do the little whiteboard breakdown. So hop over there, check it out. And thank you so much for being here, being a part of the team. Thanks for listening to what we had to say and Whitney's journey. Whitney, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, charge the mountain.